to some degree. I'm just gonna wait for the thumbs up from Tawny so that we can get started. Do, 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 do.
We're good.
Dokily dokily. All right, everybody. So, everyone tuning in for the first time, have not seen the FTC. We had just finished Final Tribal Council in a vote of 5-3-0. Shelly has emerged victorious as the sole survivor and has officially joined Timmy Lewand, Julia Rowe, and the former reigning champion, Sam William, in the illustrious Spellbound Survivor winner's circle. With that being said, I had mentioned to you guys that I have awards to give out. And of course, the day and the moment that I'm going to be doing this, uh, Google Slides is acting weird. And for some reason, I do not see the option to present these awards. It's going great. But with that being said, we have a bunch of awards. We have most Rob Juror and Pre-Juror. We have Best Alliance, Best Duo, Hero of the Season, Villain of the Season, the return of the first time we've made Underdog of the Season, and maybe, just maybe, we have Rivalry of the Season up in there as well. First time we've presented that award. There'll be a blink and miss it moment. You'll see it when it comes up. You'll see it. But why? But while we get there, finally, I'm not an imbecile. Why is Xander joining now? Why? I thought Xander was already here. Weird. I'm sharing my screen. Hurrah. Does everyone see? Do.
Yes,
Everyone
Jacob.
see. Everyone see
I
that.
can.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. So, first award, Rob Preager. We deliberate a little bit with this, with Prod, gauging, what constitutes as a Rob Preager. Is it based off of the circumstance to which they were voted off, the potential that they may have demonstrated up until that point to when they got evicted? And we felt that these three were the people most in contention for that award. Tommy, there was it was very weird. Of course, that tribe ended up dominating in the challenges post the tornado twist, and had lost a challenge sooner, maybe the challenges were arranged away. I don't think Tommy goes home if they lose before this point. So that's why he is in contention here. Ryan, some of you guys, I don't think anyone here knows, but he actually had an idol in his possession at the time of his boot, and there had been deliberations on how they would be splitting the vote between himself and V. It was initially going to be V, but at the last moment, Ryan was on the receiving end of that, and he was not able to send in his idol play in time. But Rachel, let's talk about her. Okay, so Rachel, most Rob Preager. Obviously the tornado twist, was a very unorthodox twist. It was some inspiration from Australian Survivor, where both tribes do technically go to tribal council. There's individual immunity divvied out. But the weird thing about this is that the opposite tribe is the one that votes. And whilst Jeremy, and we may talk about Jeremy's ploy with the idol in that moment that saved giraffes and ultimately sent Rachel packing, there were multiple circumstances, even just beyond that twist, that made Rachel going home very bizarre. It made that very shocking for production as a whole, because she did have lots of personal connections, both on the opposite tribe and on the current tribe, fostering very strong relationships with Ryan and V, specifically, and to where if she maybe survived that tribal council, maybe Giraffes wasn't on the receiving end of the idol play. If Shelly was voted off in the revote, then Rachel I see going very far in this game. Winner, of course, is very difficult to gaze at with a pre-juror because of just how much game had to have unfolded after their exit. But I feel like Rachel really set a precedent for how the game played out. And if she was not taken out there, then this game plays out very differently. So Rachel, I know she said she was not going to be able to attend this ceremony here. I think she's at dinner, and I'll text her later.
Her response is slay.
Response is slay. I don't know where the response is.
Oh, I sent her the photo.
Oh, neat. Okay, bet. Thank you, Jared, for doing
Okay.
that for me.
There is something I wanted to say about this.
Yeah.
If we had more time to talk before that vote, Shelly was gonna go home that round. Had I known that everyone that I think Jared did it, Jared was going to vote for Shelly. Had I known Jared was doing it, I would have done it too. So Rachel would have made it past that round.
I think it's just like the nature of this all. Like obviously, like no, I don't think anyone expected a tie to take place. Like I think that maybe I know Jared had thrown the hinky vote, but thinking there'd be no consequence for it. And I know Jeremy was the only one I think on that tribe that was thinking, oh, Giraffes is not going here. And I do think that the fact this was like a last minute thing, people had very little time to deliberate on this. I do think that there are still reasons for people to have voted off Jared. That I mean, to have voted off Rachel, that ended up voting off Rachel. So maybe she doesn't survive on the revote. But I mean, if that's any indication right there, with a little bit more time to make this decision, maybe Rachel does not go home in this scenario. So Rachel, wherever you are, thank you, Jared, for sending it that way. But pre-juror, what about Rob Jur? What the fuck just happened there? Why did the pictures show up? Well, okay, well, partially because of the reason is some of these awards we had lots of people in contention for, and so much to the point that some of these don't even have nominees, and we just get straight to the winner of these awards. This being one of those instances where we had lots of people in contention. I think anybody naturally who is the last juror is in contention for this award. So obviously, Giraffes, I'd like to mention who's not on the slide here, Nathan as well. Rob Jur, though, Jared, Jeremy, Rafi, all have reasons for their robbery. We'll talk about a particular person who voted for Rafi the round that he went out, maybe in an award or two after this fact. But Rafi, I think, demonstrated lots of potential, especially on his swap tribe. I think Prob was very invested in Rafi's and his Rafi rants was very thorough in
It,
delineating and
it's just an
figuring
honor
out
to be
versatility.
nominated. It's just
Right. Unnominated. And then Jeremy, big character. Jeremy was, I think Tucker has a little Tucker rubbed off on him. I think he was bored one day and just decided to just make the craziest, I think, tribal in Spellbound history occur. And I think obviously had a huge impact on the way that the game played out and was robbed in the sense that he had that penalty vote. We do not know what would have happened in the event of a tie. We speculate that Jeremy may have still gone home in that scenario, as Scott and Rafi were discussing. Well, in the event of a tie, they would potentially oust Jeremy here. But even then, it wasn't entirely going to be Jeremy during the whole day. So that's here why. But Jared, let's talk about Jared and why he was the Rob juror here. I mean, naturally, just the live night of it all, right? You know, this is meant to be a twist that tests people resolve and how quickly people are able to compare notes and communicate with one another. And if any one tribe anticipates, hey, there's going to be a live night, of course you could plan it. But even with that, with the opposite tribe, they weren't all voting together. Three of them did vote for Jared at the end of the day. But one of them voted for Jeremy, one of them voted for Giraffes. I think there's a lot of paranoia and mania that occurs at the live nights where people like, I don't entirely know what's happening here, or how much of this is based on, oh, people not wanting to say who they actually want to vote for because that person is in the room. And we all, as Prod, going into the final 12 round, had Jeremy pegged as probably the contender from Lyoni, just from a positioning standpoint. Had Richard and Tommy, whom he was very close with, had a good relationship with Grace considering him her final two at that point. Fostered great relationships with Kersan and Nathan as well, and had a couple people on the other tribe considering working with him as well, at least in the immediate short term. Of course, as indicative of like Scott mentioning earlier, that he was genuine, that you were his final two. So you had tons of potential there. That being said, of course, the unfortunate circumstance happened. It was a narrow vote of 4-3. You didn't even get a majority of the votes. That's the crazy thing about this. Like you didn't, majority of the people that were on that Zoom did not want to see Jared go home, and yet Jared still did. And I think Jared would have been a very big power player had Jared survived that round. So Jared, unlike Rachel, who wasn't there, if you want to respond to your award, by all means, go do that.
I mean, thought I was gonna get like dumbest move and like the Julie Chen Marcellus like hit in the head with a cards moment, but because I say I voted myself out. But I'm glad y'all saw my potential because I thought I could have made it very far in the game. Oh, did I freeze? Oh, fun.
Well, I don't know if
Am I back?
You're back. You're back.
Oh, okay.
I never lost you. I don't know.
Oh, it just looked like people are frozen for me. Um, yeah, so thank you for seeing my potential. Shout out to Tani. And I guess Jacob, because we played a game together right before this. Um, and I was really excited to play and glad that I got to show some potential.
Yeah, we were gobsmacked when that happened. We were like,
That
that,
was I.
like we were like
Oh,
listing
and
people
Cam
on
got
like
to kill
likelihood of
Cam.
them getting taken out. But I'm like, there's no way Jared goes out, right? We were blindsided. Very rarely does Prod not know what the outcome of a boat off is going to be. We may suspect it or may entertain. Maybe this other second option here is the one that ends up reigning supreme at the end of the day. But what? Oh, damn. Okay, well, we move on to our next award, the best move. Again, this is one of them we don't necessarily have nominees. There was one that was very outstandingly so. And we're summarizing it here, but there were so many moving pieces that makes this move impressive. And to go preceding worst move, I think best move is one that both strategically on paper optimally makes sense for the person enacting this move or the group enacting this move altogether, while simultaneously being one that's successful and pays off at the end of the day. Because ultimately, any good move may have consequences if people acknowledge how great of a move it was. That may ultimately enlarge the target on that person's or that group's back as a whole. But you feel like this move, especially the aftermath immediately after this, because this group put in a lot of work to make sure that they reaped the benefits of this move. The best move of the season is taking out Chris Ann, and I didn't know which of Chris or Chris Ann. Chris Ann preferred to put and the title, so I just that was a good medium. You know, put a parenthesis in case you want to be Chris Ann, and if not, then you're Chris. That'd be funny. I mean, better than me putting an E at the end of it, right? But no. So the reason why this move was so good, let's paint the picture here. So you have this four right here. Yeah, Giraffes, Richard, Scott, Shelley. They all voted together during the Jeremy boot. Immediately after losing Jeremy, Scott has the extra vote. Of course, Richard has the Emerald Idol, but that was not knowledge to all members of this alliance. If I'm not mistaken, obviously
Yeah.
Richard, correct me if I'm wrong.
I had the extra vote too that round I could have played, but I kept that for final five purposes. And Scott ended up speaking up and playing his, but I could have played the extra vote that round.
So between that, there was multiple different ways to navigate being, technically speaking, in the minority. And they suspected potentially that Nathan would have an idol. Nathan, I think, was the decoy vote, the front here, and what they told Alex that they were going to be doing that round, kind of taking advantage of Alex and Nathan's slight distrust of each other in the swap phase of the game. And to where they kind of recognized Chris Ann's kind of like the glue person in that alliance, of herself, trying to bring Alex and Nathan together, having a very close bond with Grace as well. Rafi now corroborating and working with Nathan in that group and ultimately siding with that group at the end of the day. I think they pinpointed that with Rafi winning immunity, which I'm not entirely sure if they were going to take up Rafi in this position. I think there was a point where they recognized that that wouldn't even be the optimal move. And instead, voting off Chrisanne is something that the side would not expect at all. So when Rafi ended up playing the idol for Nathan, due to Scott stealing Nathan's vote specifically, the plan, all the logistics that they worked towards to make sure Chris Ann went out, worked out well, and especially after this point, the way that they were able to still recruit Alex despite this blind side to then continue to maintain control and actually seize control without needing to use all of their trinkets. It only required Scott steal a vote to do this, although they had the extra vote in stow that Richard had for the final eight if they had to use it, but they didn't need to exhaust all of their advantages, which made them all the more powerful moving forward. So, I mean, hey, this is the final four. So it worked out for them at the end of the day. So taking out Chris Ann, if any of, I know Richard mentioned that he didn't want to inform you all about this extra vote. If anyone else wants to speak on it, or Chris Ann, I mean, hey, you kind of sort of in a way got best move. Really think about it. You should be honored.
Jacob, leave me alone.
Okay, but all right.
Damn, that's great.
So real. But with every best move, there is a worst move that was made in the game. There was fighting on the prod team, deliberating on exactly which move we would want to highlight here with this award. And this three on the screen here, and I can't believe that Jeremy making the target as humongous as he did during the tornado round is not somehow on this slide here. We also did consider Xander telling Jared and Nate that he was a potential target, because that did open the door for Xander to be targeted that round in a position where it was one of Caitlyn, Jared, or Nathan, and Xander was not initially in contention to go home there. But these are the three moves. It's Alex siding with the 4, Jared throwing the hinky vote on Shelly at 11. And I don't know if many people know this. And also in contention was Chrisanne voting Rachel instead of Shelly during the twist, the tornado twist. And I want to preface this by saying, this is not a reflection of how we think of you as a player, who we think of you as a person. Just we felt that during the last discussion, this is what we decided to be. And at some point, all of these moves were the winner at some point during the process. And the decision here was, do we give it to the move that we felt had the most impact long term? It may not have immediately played a factor, but considering the way that the game played out, that was the worst move in that regard. Do we do this from like a win equity standpoint, that this person, by making this move, I think minimized the chances, not necessarily of them going far, but them winning the game? Or which just had the immediate consequence? If they just don't do this, they just don't go home that round. And we decided the worst move is Jared throwing the hinky vote on Shelly, which was not the first hinky vote that he had casted. Also not the first hinky vote he threw on Shelly. I don't know what Jared's thing with Shelly was. But of course, there's so many weird circumstances even with this move as well, because like I mentioned earlier, that aforementioned 4 didn't even all vote together to send you home. And it's such a weird thing. But unfortunately, if you voted for one of Jeremy, considering how that next round played out, or voted out Giraffes, of course, you go into the tie with multiple people voting to keep you in that position. And I think the game plays out very differently if you don't throw that hinky vote there. While I do think that voting for Shelly made sense for you during the twist, the tornado twist, in this situation, no one was voting for Shelly. I was not there in all the rooms, but I'm hearing from multiple prod members that Jeremy and maybe Giraffes were the 2 names that were most recurring during that call. And so maybe this was to stir chaos. Maybe this was to accuse someone of throwing Shelly. Maybe getting a reaction out of Shelly. I'm not sure. But unfortunately, this had immediate repercussions that opened the door for Jared to go in the slim margin that he did. So unfortunately, Jared, 4 wards in, is your second word.
I was so close to voting Giraffes. It was a true toss-up.
No, I know. You mentioned this afterwards. I was like, this close to voting Giraffes. Like, yeah, you should have. I couldn't tell you that. But we move on to Best Alliance. And there were many alliances that were made and kind of broken instantly. You know, like there were moves that were kind of made like for that round specifically and may not have been followed up with on in other groups in subsequent rounds. There were other alliances that we were very excited were being made and we felt were optimal for that group to make, but maybe not all of the people in that group were really feeling it. And I think that this is as pretty black and white and as pretty straightforward as it is. The final 4 of the fat bottomed, I don't know if I'll get demonetized by saying this word here, so I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to have it on the PowerPoint so you guys know that that's what they named themselves. Ultimately, they were the final 4. I knew that with Shelly and Richard, what's the word I'm going to use here? Connecting. That's the word I'll use. Connecting at the tornado twist. We knew that, we suspected that Richard would go to some type of remnants of the new Tamada 5. That was also in contention for this award, just by how they were able to. They still were very Rafi, not included in that. Were very loyal to each other and had similar potential as this group that was ended up being made. But I feel like they all kind of played their individual roles. They had their different relationships to which they were leveraging to make sure that the votes were off of the group as a whole and pacifying people to where they would believe that either they were good with individuals there. Of course, Giraffes and Shelley had huge targets on their backs, whereas Richard and Scott were luckily able to avoid votes for a good duration of the game. But I feel like they all in tandem were bouncing ideas off of each other. We're very open about their advantages, about the information and the intel that they were receiving from other players. And I think had the most, not only the most open line of communication throughout the game, but ultimately found the most success. I think past alliances of the season still had one slip up here and there to where someone snuck their way. Maybe I'll play someone in the alliance when an immunity run, mind you. Maybe if Nate, like a Nathan won Final Five immunity, it would force the Fat Bottoms' hand to vote one of them out. But this is, I think, the first alliance of the season that just went to Final Four. They made it. Like objectively speaking, that's as good of a performance as an alliance could possibly provide. So Fat Bottoms could speak on it if you want. Before we move on to the next award. No?
I'm just sad that we didn't actually do what we said we were gonna do and add a superlative to the name for every person that we voted out. So we started as the fat bottom bitches, but then after Chrisanne got voted out, we were like, okay, well now we need to be the fake fat bottom bitches. And then after the next vote, we were gonna add another one, but I think Discord has a character limit.
Yeah, I think I know that the Discord, for at least for chats and categories, has a character limit. I don't know how much it is, but I did not know that. That's due. Yeah, I think a prod member may have mentioned it offhand once. That we're gonna adjust that. But this is in your peak. This is in your apex. This is your original form, the fat bottoms. No more adjectives added on top of that. So again, congratulations on this award. But with every alliance, let's divide this by two. Best duo of the season. There was a lot of personal relationships that we think that were fostered throughout this game. A lot of people hit it off very well, and I did not know a majority of you going into this game, but just off of vibes and your interviews, and for those who I did know, there was a lot of interactions that I was very intrigued to see where they went. There was some I kind of expected to be strong, notably Chris and Nathan. They're an honorable mention in this scenario as well. But I feel like this duo, I think the moment they hit it, I've never seen all of the game up until that point not matter once they met this person. They're like, that is my number one. Nope, not even entertaining any other ideas here. And ultimately they wrote it out and remained loyal to each other in a way that what? Okay, sorry, my bad. So let's check something. I've never seen a duo more loyal to each other and more willing to quote unquote die on the sword as the best duo of the season being Richard and Shelley. I know that Shelley had apologized for some things that were said in that chat, and apology accepted. Okay, but that was a type of connection. Technically, I mean, you guys are the first showmans of Spellbound. I think any game that I've hosted, so applause to that. Hopefully, you guys meet up. We'll see if that connection translates to in person. You guys hit it off on the tornado twist, which all the prod was blindsided by when Shelly ran to her chat and said, "Oh, I am enamored with this guy. Richard's my ride or die. And I will die. I will kill for this man." And just seeing it being reciprocated to where they're always on calls. I don't know, but just the sentiment of doing everything in your power to make sure that not only you were safe, but Richard was safe as well. Of course, we have the final four round where some discussions were had, but I think that's even more just indicative of just how loyal to each other you guys were, and how happy and content you were with either of you coming out of here as the victor. I don't know if either of you want to speak more on your relationship throughout the game or.
Yeah, I will. I've never had a redheaded friend before, and I swear when me and Shelly met, it was like we had known each other for 30 years. The conversation was just so natural, and I think she was a little intimidated by me first, because the first thing I said to her was like, "Oh, I got a bullet in the chamber ready to go," because it was the one world round where we had to vote the other tribe, and like she said, we spent hours together the first night talking, and I knew immediately if I want to lose to anybody, it's to Shelly. I'm so proud that she won. I really did try to like foster relationships in this game with everyone, but this one was like the one. I tried to treat people good. I had good names with everyone. Me and Nathan were bold and beautiful. Me and Rafi were like R squared. Me, Chris, Ann, and Alex were the hinky voters. Me and Alex were no directioners. So it's like I tried to make true bonds with people, but this one with Shelly, like we didn't even fucking need a name. We were just like the Ginger Rascals, and we hit it off immediately and ultimately wrote it out together. So I'm so proud that you won, Shelly. You played amazing, and
Thank you.
you deserve this.
The fact of the matter is that the night of the One World, I was on a date and got stood up. And I was like literally at this pizza place, like drinking tequila, maybe like too much tequila. And y'all like, the night kind of wound down and Richard slid into my DMs like and he benefited from the fact that I was maybe feeling a little vulnerable. And then we spent like that whole night together. And then when the One World thing ended, I kind of woke up the next day and was like, did that actually happen? Like, I don't trust easily, not even in my real life. And so the fact that I did instantly feel and trust someone so much was just very bizarre to me. And so when we reconnected back at the merge, I had to like reconfirm things because that's it was like lightning struck between us. I don't know how else to say it.
All right, then we move on to our next award here. Hero of the season. Let me preface this by saying, those other awards, it's because like there was such an outstanding choice, that there was no need to deliberate. Let me preface this by saying, not a lot of you were heroic. I think like in the alignment, there was like one like true good, and everyone else was like neutral, chaotic, or one form of evil. Like you know that alignment chart of like true, lawful and chaotic, and then good, neutral, evil. That's what we had to work with. So this player, we had fun choosing villain because we couldn't decide for villain, but Hero I think was pretty firm. Um, we decided ultimately on this person. I think this person handled themselves with tons of poise on their way out. There was no arguments that were had with this individual. There I don't think was any active deception. I think just came into this game with just a kind soul, just a kind of came in here with a heart of gold, like just good intentions, and I think was very honest and very transparent with people about their feelings about how the game was playing out. I think was a very sympathetic figure throughout this game with how the game had unfolded. Um, like there was, and I do want to preface this by saying like there were a couple people mentioned in contention, none to which I want to mention because it spoils kind of this next category that we have, underdog of it all. At some point, um yeah, we made underdog. We made a point to have underdog so that hero would be easier to give out. But I think far and above, the most heroic person on this season. This is a full circle moment because she just gave me this award like 3 months ago. Grace is the hero of the season. I know she had mentioned when giving me this award that she's a hero, and I was like, I'll believe it when I see it. I gotta see how the way that this game plays out. But I think a lot of people we're very messy and we're very willing to stir up the pot and we're willing to, throw hinky votes. They were willing to throw people under the bus, to leak things instantly after they would get off of calls with people. But Grace was having none of that. And there was a point where this first tribal council should have been so simple. Like this is the first tribal council, no first impressions, no president up until this point. And Grace may have been one of the only two people, with Scott being the other, whose name was not said at all, just due to the fact that she was not involving herself in any of the drama that was occurring during that tribal council. And I think that's really indicative of the game that Grace was trying to play with the limited time that she did have. Of course, she was super busy with her schedule, but I think with the time that she did have, she was trying to be as under the radar, as low key, and as non-problematic as possible to be a playable figure. And while I know that she mentioned that she didn't feel as though she had much of a chance to win, and some people mentioning not believing that she may not have deserved to have won at the end, but I still do see scenarios where people could have been so angry at someone for betraying them that Grace, to finalists who had mentioned this, she didn't really anger anybody in the game or
It was
lift with
Scott,
anybody
I think, who
specifically.
said it. Yeah, it was Scott. I believe it was him who said it about that.
Yeah. The moment that she wasn't, I was like, ah.
I'm kind of shocked right now. Thank you. I'm gonna be like, even though, like, when I will say when I was around, because I literally applied to this game thinking I was gonna be a boss ass fucking bitch, and that, oh, I'm gonna be fucking Iron Woman. I'm gonna play this org, and I'm gonna be rolling in my life. I learned very quickly that is not the case. 0 out of 10 recommend. By the way, I put it on my Snap story the other day, but I'd say 0 out of 10 recommend. But when I was around here, yo, I kept it. I try to keep it sweet and as loving as possible, and that's the energy I always want to bring in. So I'm really happy I got to win this. Thank you.
All right, then we're gonna move on to the underdog of the season. These are our two main. You'll see in a moment why the fact that these are the two nominees is funny. So we introduced this award last season because there was two people, Glenda and Jaywan, that we were waffling between who gets hero. We don't really know. Like, do we give it to the person we felt was the most had the best intentions? I think played the least deceptively. I think was the most endeared to by a large group of people, or do we give it to somebody who faced more adversity, faced more obstacles on their way to the position that they got into the game? And Nathan and Giraffe in both different giraffe. There's not singular giraffes. There's multiple giraffes. Nathan and Giraffes were two that I think faced adversity, but in very different ways. Nathan, from a political standpoint, in that he was down in the numbers. He didn't get his way from Final 9 onwards, and was kind of facing an uphill battle to where I don't know if I could say this, even for that's the Morgan Reed, where it was just an outstanding. If Nathan gets to the end, he will win. Like people in the game or correct in that assessment that if Nathan gets to the end, he sweeps the jury. He needs to do something terribly wrong for him to lose. And Drafts a similar sentiment as well. Garnered multiple votes throughout the iteration of the season, and of course the tornado twist of it all. Her going home and technically receiving a majority of the votes, but Jeremy playing this idol, making this big ploy, and I think having still received votes multiple instances after this point, still being perceived as a huge target, and people from the four ultimately choosing to vote her off at the 11th hour, where maybe an immunity challenge is going a different way. Maybe she doesn't and has a really good chance of pleading her case and becoming the winner of Spellbound. The reason why, just wait a minute. Wait, why? So yeah, if you saw it, maybe you did it. But yeah, so underdog of the season, it was very close. But we decided, just the underdog story, just from a political standpoint, I think this person needed to win out to get there. Nathan, if you won Final 6, you needed Final 6. You were going to go home if you didn't win immunity at 6, and I think that could have been more discussions about not voting out Grace there. But I think there's just too much of a fear. Nathan already has enough win equity as his. We need to maximize the chance that Nathan loses this next challenge. And if Nathan, you had won Final 5 and Final 4, and because I don't see any other route of you getting there. Well, yes, Richard did have this great relationship with you. The other three were very adamant that if Nathan gets to the end, he wins, which is very much the case. I love the dichotomy of this all, because a lot of people preseason on production was thinking, he's very close friends with a former POTS winner, and maybe she'll teach him a couple things or two. But you didn't need lessons. You didn't need any of that, and you paved your own path to this end game right here in a position where, is very proud of you in that regard. So 5th place is not shabby at all for where you were at leaving the Final 9. We're very proud of you. So Nathan, underdog of the season, gave a valiant effort, a really huge fight. Nathan, do you have words to say? No? I don't know if you're trying to mute or you're talking, but you're muted. or you're busy right now. I know that you just came back from the EDM vibes. Okay, so we got the hero, we got the underdog. Now we got to get into the villain of the season, which there were a couple other nominees here. These are the three nominees that we have decided on. And let me preface this by saying you should be proud. I've won both. I've won both hero. I've won villain. They're both great awards to win. You know, the hero. I mean, there's a reason why in Heroes versus Villains. Spoiler alert: if you haven't watched it, clear saying, you know, not the most survivory person may not have watched this season. There's a reason why the villains reign supreme. They are not afraid to make the move that they need to make in order to best position themselves. They are strategic, they are cutthroat, they are cunning, but they will analyze and observe every single option for every single angle and ultimately come up with the decision that makes the most sense for them to make. Okay, look at that. Rob Preacher is in the waiting room. Let's admit her in. Jeremy, Rafi, Shelly, in all different ways. I think we all got a huge insight as to what your thoughts were at every point of every stage of the game, whether it be because your pod guests were asking specifically for your thoughts on the game, but or of your own volition, maybe sending voice memos, paragraphs about what you thought was going to occur in the game, what you felt was the best decision for you to make. This was not an easy decision because we mentioned earlier that we struggled with the hero of the season. Well, not necessarily struggled because I think it was pretty non-debatably great, but we had so many villains. You know, Richard was also in contention for this award as well, and we didn't. This was another one we had to weigh on, and again, this is not a personal thing. Whoever gets this award, and we really want to make it a credit to, regardless of who we gave it to, but we think the person who played the most strategically cutthroat and played into the villain role, because that's a big thing too. If you don't play up, you're a villain. And I think this person said, I am a two-faced C word. We can't say that on stream either because I don't want to get demonetized. Shelly. I think the first we've had winners that kind of leaned more into the face side of things, but you've leaned into the heel. We've had a couple heels make it to the end and ultimately lose, but I think you kind of played into that villain role very well, and you weren't afraid to play that. I think you came into this being your first game, being very ambitious of all the factors that come into playing this game, enduring the elements of it all. And obviously, for you to win your first game is a very impressive feat in and of itself. And I think at the beginning of the game, you know, making it a point, it's like, I'm going to lie about my occupation because I don't want people to think that I'm good at crunching the numbers and analyzing and investigating and digging into certain situations. I think that you did a really good job in, you know, not only observing the game, looking at the layout, thinking that, okay, what is the best move for me to make strategically? But your DRs, you sent a couple of them. I think really play. I think it's personality. I think that's a really big thing. And one thing that all the villains do, they play into it. They revel in the chaos. They are more than happy to play that role and admit it's like some people may not be the happiest with me right now, but ultimately I gotta do what's best for my game. I gotta play my game. And that is something that, you know, heroes and underdogs may be a bit more reluctant to do. But I do think that Shelly played that role the best. So Shelly, the floor is yours if you want to react to this award.
I guess it was, if there's a highlight reel of all the times that I said something along the lines of I will slit their throat, then that kind of tracks. So I probably shouldn't feel honored as I do to
No, you should
get
be.
this, especially because I felt like I honestly thought that I would end up in like a hero perception because of how much I worked to keep my alliance loyal. But this is better, so thank you.
I think like we kind of perceived it more so as like making sure that your group would stick together for your personal benefit rather than it being like, oh, I'm such a loyal person. I gotta keep everyone around. I gotta keep the conflict to a minimum. I think that was another element of your game that obviously garnered you the votes at the end of it all. But yeah, we're gonna move on to our next award. We have host favorites. That I guess technically concludes. Although we do have one at the end of the finale. Why people are? I didn't know people left. But Brian, if you want to go on, if you're here, talk about your favorite.
Yes, can you hear me, Jacob? Okay, thank you. It was a very fun season. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed a lot of you, a lot of good players, a lot of good strategy, a lot of messy strategy. But for me, my favorite had to be Jeremy. Jeremy played very chaotically, I really like. It wasn't necessarily the best move at the tornado round, but it was very fun and very entertaining. And I just loved having him here and happy that he played. And I think all of Prada's happy that he was on this season. So he's my favorite.
I know Jeremy said that he had to like leave, and I feel bad. Um, because he. Okay, we do want to make it a point that Jeremy in his prod chat was like, "Oh, well, if you got any awards, please tell me now." And we didn't, and I didn't notice it afterwards. So, and Jeremy said he's going to watch this afterwards. So, Jeremy, here you go. You did get an award. Yeah, Brian's favorite. Mwah. Anyways, we're gonna move on to Cam's favorite. Cam, the floor is yours.
All right, hello. So I go into host favorites, just flashlight, act like I don't know anybody. Going in with a fresh start, just like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm real. I drank too much. But I go into host favorite like with a fresh slate and no bias whatsoever. And like I did give it to somebody that I had never met before, like ever. And like just based off of like one challenge, the music challenge, I knew that this person was going to be my favorite like almost immediately because so much, he's a very funny person, very entertaining and confessional, like just very funny person, very good, well strategically as well. So my favorite is Rafi. And Rafi, I really loved the Rafi rants as well. They were great. Like you were definitely a pleasure to have on this season. I'm glad that you did apply and glad that we get to meet you.
Thank you. I'm glad you could be honored with my presence here today. No, I'm kidding. Well, thank you for liking me, I guess. That's all.
Okay, we're gonna go a little bit out of order because it was supposed to be alphabetical order, but you'll see why mine's is not next. Next is Tawny's.
Oh, I didn't know I was gonna be here. Okay. Hi, hello. Um, so my favorite, I feel like I do this every season. I just kind of go based off of vibes very, very, very early on. Um, and the vibe that I had at the very start, and it honestly stayed throughout the entire time that they were in the game. My favorite is Chris. Um, literally I had the best time in her prod chat. You'll hear more about that here soon. Um, um, but we just connected on a personal level with our jobs, and I'm the fun aunt here. I am not anything else on this prod team other than the fun aunt and Zoom. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I love you too, Tawny.
All right, then we're gonna move on to Xander's host favorite. Xander, take it away, my boy.
I hope everyone can hear me. My phone's at like 4%, so I'm gonna make this nice and quick. I also don't know if this person is here, but if they are here, this person was a joy to watch. I loved watching them just play the game, speak their mind, do everything that in their power to do everything that they can. And you know, they looked good doing it during the game and after the game. I'll say it. My host's favorite, you can advance the next slide, is Nathan. Let me just tell you, Nathan, if you're here, your outfits were on point and I loved them. That was my personal favorite part. But you also played an amazing game and it was a great watching you.
Nathan, if you want to unmute for this award, then you could do it.
Sorry, I was away for a quick second. But
my bad.
You. Oh wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was away for the other award, so thank you for that. But thank you so much. Yeah. That's all.
All right then. So last but the most Definitely not least, the hottest member of Prod, who's my favorite, right? You know, the most important award here. There's a non-zero chance. It's also the player of the season. So, let's get into that. We're gonna break this up. So, I'll tell you about someone I was considering for my host favorite and someone in contention for Pots, and then we're gonna go into the winner because it's the same person. For host favorite, I think my favorite interview ever, Giraffes. I quotable. I remember immediately after your interview, I was quoting you because there was two things. It was like there's two different types of players I can't stand: the overstepper and the egotistical bastard. And I died. I choked. I think I choked on my own spit during your interview. But that's like compose myself naturally to maintain professionalism. You showed a lot of promise, and promise you demonstrated. I think just the way you were able to articulate yourself as tribal council is very engaging, and I loved seeing your mind. Is just the way that you played the game. And then an honorable mention for player of the season because we don't give it to our winner. Okay, so that's one thing. But everyone else is eligible for this award because Shelly won the most important award of them all. Really, it's winning. And then for Potts, we considered Richard for this award because Richard, I think, played a stellar strategic game, and I think one of the strongest strategic games I think I've seen in this series. The way that he was able to foster some very integral bonds to get to the point to where he was at, I think he did a lot of like damage control to where more so like getting people to believe I'm your guy. You're my person. Let's ride this out to the end. And I do think that that's simultaneously a blessing and a curse because a lot of people on the jury felt most burned by you because of the strength of the relationships that you fostered with them. And I do think that you came in with tons of gusto and had tons of confidence again, which rightfully so. I think you played a really good game. And I wish that you didn't receive, and I don't think the 0 votes that you received was a reflection of how well you played this game. I came in here thinking everyone was going to be receiving votes for one reason or another due to how divided and how open this jury was. I did not think this was being determined not until the questioning was done. But I do want to preface this. I did not know this person before the game started, before like the preseason, the casting process of this all. But I got off this interview saying I think this person is going to win. And I think for a good chunk of the jury phase, this was the favorite. And I think going into this was still the favorite to win the game. And I do think that just the way that they were so well positioned, especially in the first half of the game and in the back half, there were still multiple jurors advocating for this person to win at the end. I want to give this person their flowers tonight. So Potts is Scott. I think that Scott I think the performance wasn't a reflection of how well you. I know you said I don't think I deserved any votes. No, 1000% that you did. I think you formed really strong integral bonds with people and friendships, and I think it was genuine. I think that's a really big thing, and hence why I mentioned kind of sort of you in Hero earlier. There's like this big heart that you had. I think you came in here heart first, but still thinking strategically. I don't think you led your decisions with any emotions or with the heart, determining what you felt was best for your game. And I mentioned earlier with Grace that you were the only person whose name wasn't even seriously in contention for how crazy that first tribal was. And you were kind of the deciding factor with Rafi as to how the new Tomato was going to play out. Either you were going to side with the Shelly Draft side of things, or you were going to side with the Rachel side of things. You had the 24-hour conversation with Rachel, had that relationship going into this swap, and I think you had so many different options. Like you said earlier, there was multiple times where I think if you just flipped, something completely differently happens in this game. So I want to give you your due respect. I want to give all players that made it to the jury their due respect, and this was your time to get yours, Scott. So I know that you had left the Zoom earlier. I'm glad that you decided to join back again. We adored you. We hope you appreciate and believe us when we give you this award. Or technically two, but I know you're muted right now, so I'm not going to leave you there for too long. We are now concluded with the formal awards, and now we're going to get into the superlatives. I told you, everyone's going to get something. Everyone, some of these funnier, some of these going to require more explanation than others. But first off, we're going to go in boot order, placement order. First, we're going to go to Xander, the biggest crash and burn award. Because he was not going home. I think we all on prod saw the round unfold in a way to where we're like, oh no, it's Xander, isn't it? Because we weren't anticipating that. Going into the first 2 days of the game, including day 0, he had this connection with Grace. We thought that, Caitlyn was balancing multiple games at the same time. Maybe she would be a very likely boot. Other people were mentioning Jared and Nathan's inactivity at that point, at least relative to everybody else on the tribe. And so we thought, oh, Xander was set. Xander was good. And then Xander wasn't good anymore. And definitely played the round rather messily at that point. We love it. We love players trying to push their limits, trying to go above and beyond, trying to make something happen. It may not work out, but he made a big risk in informing Jared about the fact that he was in contention to receive votes here. But I do think that unfortunately bit him in the butt. Next one goes to Keddy. We have the best campaign at Tribal Award. For those of you who was not there at the Tamada Tribal, Keddy live was saying why he should stay in the game. And we had people deliberating during Tribal. Should we do it? Should we vote to keep Keddy in this position? Like, up until the very last moments. Like, Keddy had mentioned it after his exit that he was certain that like this game wasn't for him. Like he knew that he was very busy. A lot of personal factors were getting in the way of him playing to his max potential. But Keddy, to his credit, gave a very valiant effort. He did not give up, even in despite of how bleak it was, and very much likely that even from the beginning of that round, he was very likely going to be the boot, and eventually was. I'm still had a couple people contemplating at the very last second: do we vote to keep Keddy? Do we vote someone else out? Their third option, this, that, and the third. So yeah, Keddy, best campaign at Tribal. Move on to Caitlyn. The Best Balancing Act Award, because for those of you who do not know, she was playing this game and a second game and a third game all at the same time. And both all started relatively around the same time, too. Made it super far in the collective. I'm very happy for her. Was voted off similarly timed in Power Grab as well. Had played lots of games and I think that definitely played a factor into why she was ended up being the boot in this situation. Of course, there was the tribe deficit that played a factor. She was outnumbered 5-3. I think that if it was the other way around, maybe she'd survive that tribal council. But I think she was just super busy trying to divide her attention between 3 games. That's no easy thing to do. Balancing your personal obligations with 1 game is already enough. So doing that whilst also balancing 3 games and trying to give all production teams as much attention as you can, very difficult thing to do. There you go. Rachel, next up, gets the fastest exit award because after she got voted off, she said, okay, thanks, and left the server. Like, moments after she was announced that she got sent home, which, fair, very fair. If I got sent home by that, I'm going to be that enthused to be in the server after that. So, fastest exit. She came back. I'm about to die. She eventually returned. Understanding I was a little bit upset, a little bit bitter, a little bit sore about it. Rightfully so. We move on to Ryan. Discord's Nemesis Award. So I mentioned he had this idol, right? That wasn't even sure if he absolutely needed to play during that tribal council. There were still talks about V potentially going home instead of him in the split. But what you don't know, so obviously he does receive these votes and gets on some last minute calls right before tribal council. He planned to send in the idol play before tribal council happened. But what he's telling us, what I think happened was he closed Discord before the message fully sent, and it didn't send until after the tribal council. We felt something like what could Prod do in that situation, right? So we opted to. We couldn't do anything at that point. It was too late. So rip him. He went to a fraternity meeting, I think, or a prod meeting or something. They had to attend to. Rip that guy indeed. But we move on to V, the biggest hater award. And after the docs are revealed, you'll see all the episode quotes. So I don't want to get into all of them here during this finale. But the biggest one, the first one was, I'm tired of this group already. When she said this, not even hours after the tribe, like, we're divided and stuff like that. She left also saying, I love Prod. I have nothing but good things to say about Prod. Can't say anything about these players though. So had a very noteworthy exit for someone that was at a dinner. It could be at the tribal council itself. So we're gonna move on to our last feature. Tommy gets the biggest Chelsea stan award. I hopped on a call with him and Ryan, and the three of us did Big Brother winner rankings. And I walked into
Yeah, I remember.
so I walked into him mentioning I think Chelsea's a top 5 winner of all time.
He
Um,
is okay.
both me and you share very similar sentiments to Chelsea. I think she played the best winning game of a woman.
Mhm.
And Big Brother. Ryan did not agree with our sentiments. Did not rank up nearly as high.
Do you
But I
still
thought that was a
have
very.
do you still have
I
the
do have
doc?
it.
Okay.
I'll send it to you afterwards. But we move on to our next participant, Jared. Jared gets the Kinky for Hinkies award. He just had such an affinity for just throwing hinky votes for just some reason. I don't know what it was. The first one uh ultimately led to one of the crazy, which to be fair, if he didn't throw in that hinky vote, then the tie doesn't happen. Rachel goes by 1 vote, which is crazy. But then to add on to the craziness of that tornado twist, he threw in that vote for Shelly, which almost saved Rachel at the end of the day had it not been for a disadvantage that Nathan had received earlier on in the season. And then he threw a hinky vote again at Shelly during the 11 round. And both times he mentioned I was this close to voting giraffe. Both times he was close to voting giraffe. Said, nah, I'm gonna vote for Shelly instead. So I something about hinky votes, man. Just Jared just drew to the idea. But yeah, we're gonna move on. Jeremy gets the Luigi wins by doing absolutely nothing award. Because he won that duel against Rachel by doing absolutely nothing. He didn't need to compete in the challenge because Rachel didn't compete in it beforehand. That we didn't know what award to give because we were going to reference the tornado twist to some capacity. But the fact that he willingly said, I will take my chance in a challenge against Rachel Roth, of all people on this cast, was crazy. And he didn't need to do anything. And it backfired him, which is absurd. Okay, we move on to the next person. We got to wrap this up. I know I'm going on for a while here. Tristan gets the Blind for Tawny's Love Award because in her prod chat, instead of telling us, most people would talk to us about the game, talk about developments that were going on, the new alliances that formed, comparing notes with one another. Chrisanne instead was talking to Tawny at full length about who her rooting interests on Love is Blind were.
Was important.
It was sure. So that was a bulk of what we were getting from Chrisanne's house chat. So that guy, right? Like if this was at the time of like Love is Blind season
Fuck
2, oh that
Ramses.
nah, man. I think Ramses was just
Period.
misunderstood. I don't
Fuck
know
him
any of these
and
guys.
those cool dreads.
I have watched one season and I know of Shake, and that is all I know about Love is Blind. So I cannot participate in any of
Fuck
these
them too.
conversations. But I thought it was funny that I would go back to Kristen's chat. It's like, damn, Kristen's chat's blowing up. What's she talking about? And it's just Love is Blind. I'm like, okay. So we're gonna move on to our next person. Rafi just gets why does he just picture pop up? I don't get it. Rafi gets the Hoot Award. It's because he's funny. That's it. We've laughed a lot. We forwarded lots of messages that Rafi would said. Like Rafi did not just fucking say that. Like, he was a very comedic, very fun personality here. I just we loved hosting you, man.
What was your
I can't-
favorite one? What was your favorite one? Best
well,
Rafi quote.
there's an award in reference to something that you had talked about.
Oh, okay,
that will
good.
be the answer. But I just Cam snatched you very early on. Oh, Rafi's my winner just because he's just super funny. I just such a funny guy. Like just we would hop on a call and we usually need to go on calls to mute, but you made that mandatory. But we move on to the next person. Alex is the angriest exit we didn't see award. When he was voted off, he was mad. Had a few choice words that we didn't get to see. Most people left with a splash. Most people left, either they were not there at tribal council to say things, but didn't say all that much anyways, or they were there. They were like Chrisanne and had lots of words to say to the people on the way out. Alex did, but just we didn't get to see it, and no one will ever see it. But just know it was angry. We move on to Grace. Which is funny. Again, full circle moment. You gave me hero and you gave me a superlative referring to my job. So Grace gets the hardest worker award because her multiple jobs just conflicted so much with the sketch. She would mention it a lot. that she was at work. It's like, damn, it sucks that I'm at work. I feel bad for taking a spot for people because I'm always working. Have I mentioned I was working, guys? It's a very unfortunate time because I had to obviously leave work, go on breaks, and use breaks to tend to spellbound things. So I totally get that. So your situation, not being able to always attend tribal councils, having to send multiple pre-votes in the process, just you dedicate as much time as you could to this game. But that does not change your work ethic. Got that for you, Grace. We move on to Nathan here. This was the answer to Rafi's question as the most suspected to be Hispanic award because there was a call between Rafi and Scott and they were like, is Nathan Hispanic or something? And I was away. I was with family. I was at this like gala for my brother to receive an award. And I'm seeing this and I had to do an appointment, so I had to walk away anyways. But I need to get on this call to make this a point to say so it's not just me. I thought I was the only one who just had that crazy.
I was like, oh, that's my Latino brother right there. We're gonna bond so well. Like I was like, oh, is your name like Rivera? Like I was dead ass thought Nathan was fucking Hispanic.
I thought he was too. I was thinking like Uruguay, Paraguay, like something in South America. Like I
Mi
was thinking
gente
like
Latino.
I was not thinking. I didn't think he was one of me. One of us. I didn't think he was a Puerto Rican, but I was just thinking, nah, he's one of us.
I remember I was literally on the toilet during that phone call. Not gonna lie.
I didn't know his last name, Rachel. All I saw was Nathan.
Yeah, but no, I found that out too. But first meeting him and seeing him in Kaleidoscope, I was like, I gotta unite with this guy, my man, my Latino brother. I didn't say that, but like, yeah, my Latino brother. We move on. Final four. Giraffes. Gets the greediest morning reporter award. This is almost like two awards in one. Drafts to greed. Which let me just say, there was more stuff after just immunity after this point. So all those advantages was going to have immunity on top of one of those advantages. So if you wait a little bit longer, there's going to be immunity and like an extra vote, immunity and a public idol was the last one. That there was three more prompts after this fact, and everyone just all mutually agreed that was the last award. What could be better than immunity? Well, we found a way to make something better than immunity, just immunity for that tribal council, because everyone thought, oh, no one was going to take anything. So there's that aspect of it, and I would just my morning routine. I wake up, I brush my teeth, I wash my hair, I use the bathroom, I freshen up, put some clothes on, and I wake up to see Giraffe say good morning to everybody. That is pretty much in order, the sequence of events to which I was doing things during the day. So yeah, that was fun to see. Richard gets the Tony Award. This is double entendre. It's a double-edged sword. So there's obviously the Tony Awards. That's a thing. That's an award that people get, and I think it's very much again attributed to how well he played this game. He deserves a Tony Award. Deserves an Oscar. Deserves an Emmy for the way that he played this game. But on top of that, he had the Super Idol, which I know a couple people questioned the real is like if this was true, it was true. So there was points.
Real.
It was real. It was definitely very real, and we haven't implemented in advance like that ever before. And we were like, hey, Emerald City, you make it to the end of the board. Let's reward you a little bit. You make it to Emerald City, get an Emerald Idol for your efforts. So yeah, no, he flaunted it, and I'm mad that I ended the record. I don't know if it was me or it was Brian. One of us ended the recording around the time where he was mentioning this because I think he wanted this on the live stream for the jury to see and say, look, hey guys, we talked about the advantages and I gotta justify some of the moves I've been making, but I got the Super Idol here. In a very Tony Vlachos-esque way of kind of flaunting it at Tribal Council and lying about how long the advantage lasts for. So yeah, no, you get the Tony Award, man.
Thank you.
They compared you to Russell. I was like, nah, Tony, I think is more apt.
I'm very honored. Like I was literally going to say in my final tribal council speech, like I based my game around when I had immunity around my neck is when I made my big moves and voted the way I wanted to and not everyone else wanted to. And that's something that Tony did was he made the big moves when he had immunity around his neck, especially in Winners at War. He had immunity when he took Sophie out. So this is fitting. I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Like I think that there's like a level of like, well, since I am immune, it can't backfire. I mean, especially like for you, having such a pivotal advantage in your pocket technically means you have the luxury of playing more than just the next round afterwards. Like you can consistently think ahead and make multiple moves because of you having this advantage, and that I think affected your gameplay. Maybe you didn't have this idol, you would have played drastically differently. But I think that was very interesting seeing how someone handled that advantage and never, I feel like, needed to use it. I think the only time where I genuinely think maybe he will have to use this was during the tornado round if Shelly got sent home. But aside from that, I think every other instance afterwards was like, oh no, Richard's fine. Richard doesn't got to use this. And the closer we were approaching to final six, we're thinking he's never going to get votes during any of it. Like he doesn't even need the idol. But we move on to Scott. He gets well, he mentioned he was on the toilet earlier during a call. He gets the poopy pants award. Because he just consistently gets the nervous shits before tribal council. He was so scared. It was him during the first tribal council, but no one said his name at all. And yeah, poopy pants. Huh. I don't know. It's stupid. It's an immature name, but that's your superlatives. I don't really know what to say. I don't have any more things to elaborate on. And
I wouldn't take any other award, honestly. I poop 6 times a day, so yes, Rachel was right. The first round I got to talk to Rachel because of the apple twist, and I was freaking the fuck out the first round.
yeah, no, like I remembered that, and all of Prod was saying he's like the only one who does not need to worry. Like it was
No, yeah, every game I play, I always worry. I poop 17 times a day when I'm in games. So thank you. I'll take it.
okay, but so I had to confirm or something because for Shelly, her thing is the längste Absätze. That's German. Because you guys didn't know, she's in Germany, and the translation is the longest paragraphs award because at the just throughout the entire game, whether it be to players, whether it be to production about what was going on in the game, reads we had. Just we had Shelly had lots of things to say to people. I think just was very elaborate about what she was thinking about in the game. She was in thorough detail about everything that she thought, and she felt it every single time. So yeah, no, that. I mean, hey, I'm a paragraph writer too. I get it. I mean, clearly, I've talked throughout this entire award ceremony. I'd be shocked if this gets uploaded, and this is not longer than Final Tribal Council. So my apologies for holding you on for this long. But with that being said, that concludes the reunions and the award show for Spellbound Survivor Land of Oz. We have another series in the history books. We will maybe there's season 5 on the horizon. We do not know. We have not thought that far ahead. We finish the season, we kind of gauge, what everyone's going through in our lives, how busy we are, how available we are, figure out a theme. We have no teaser for you guys because there may not be a season 5. I don't know. It's the same way in other seasons as well. But just keep an eye out because you never know. Maybe a returning opportunity may be arriving soon. I'll leave you at that. Again, Shelly, congratulations on winning, becoming the sole survivor, Spellbound Survivor Land of Oz. And with that, everybody, good night. And remember,
get the hell
Shout out to my
Get
adults.
the fuck off
Get
my
the hell off my
island.
island.
There
It
we
took
go.
me a bit. I was giving it suspense.